You're listening to the AV-IT Amplifier. Each week, we'll feature voices and ideas that need to be amplified in the higher education and pro AV IT communities. This show is brought to you by higheredav.com. And now here's your host, Ryan Gray.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us. Quick intro to this episode. As you'll hear, we've got a little bit of turning the tables on me, where we have a guest host who is going to make me the guest of the episode, which is a little weird. We had a little bit of a long recording, which we cut in half, so don't be surprised when this episode cuts off. And with that said, we will turn it over to my good friend, Chris.
Well, welcome everybody to another episode of the AV-IT Amplifier. However, as you can tell, there's been a hostile takeover. Ryan has been removed. I'm now in charge. I'm kidding. My name's Chris Dechter. I am a friend of Ryan's. You've heard me on this show 7 times already. You may know me from the AV Super Friends or from HETMA or at any number of conferences or just being a general jerk in representing higher ed AV for years. I hope you are okay with that, because you're going to get more of it today. I reached out to Ryan a few weeks ago after listening to one of his episodes and said, you know, I've got an idea for a show. Why don't we have you on as the guest? You are the voice that needs to be amplified. And Ryan said, how did you get this number? And after figuring that out, Ryan said, this sounds like a great idea. Yep. Is that fair, Ryan? Is that kind of how it went?
That is very fair, and I would say not only friend and friend of the show, the guest on episode number 1 and 2, and of course, your amazing voice is featured at the beginning and end of every episode. So if you recognize the voice, this is the person that you hear at the beginning of the episode, introduce it, and go, man, I like listening to that guy. And then I come in and y'all go, oh, shoot, we were hoping it was the other guy. Well, you're in luck.
We were hoping it's the other guy the whole time.
The other guy.
Wasn't.
Yeah.
All right. So yes, so now the other guy's voice is going to be on the entire show asking Ryan questions. These are not the normal questions that Ryan asks his other guests. I listen to every show, but while listening to recent episodes with who'd you have, Jimmy Singleton and Aaron Momoran, yeah, I made notes of the sort of questions I would like to ask. So kind of like, and maybe we all do this. I don't know, Ryan, do you do this? Here's the first question, and this wasn't even one of the questions, but
okay.
When listening to podcasts, do you ever come up with other things that you would like to ask or things you want to interject because you're listening to a conversation between 2 or 3 or 17 people, as on my shows where I have 27 people on the panel at any given time? But you have like, why don't they ask this? Or I want to say this. You want to say things. And so I made notes, and that's how I came up with a list of questions for this show. But is that your experience when listening to podcasts, or are you completely passive and you just sit there and let it wash over you?
No, so one, that depends on the caffeination level and where you're at in the day. But absolutely, you know, when you get to hear the same people's voices, you get to anticipate, you know, what you think would come next, what you think somebody would say when you get used to listening to people. But yeah, I always think, oh man, there was an interesting direction to go there. Maybe we didn't follow down that thread, or that other thing, especially when people are trying to be funny. I always try and, like, my mind will think of the joke that I think the person might say. And then if they say it, then it's like a victory. Then I have my own little celebration that do
you have a collection of gold stars? You put one on the back of your phone.
Exactly. No, nobody is a bigger fan of me than me. So you know what I'm saying? I'm very good at patting myself on the back.
All right. So I do have one question I'm going to ask you at the beginning here, which is the same question you normally ask your guests right at the beginning. Mm-hmm. Introduce yourself. Who are you and what do you do?
Thank you. So my name is Ryan Gray. By day, I am the title is Assistant Director of IT at Yavapai College in Northern Arizona. So that means I have about half the IT department that reports to me. Yavapai County is the northern part of Arizona. We have pine trees, not desert, and it's a beautiful place to live. Everybody come visit. And I moonlight as an at-large board member for HETMA, the Higher Education Technology Managers Alliance, which is a great job because you get to vote on things, but you don't have any actual responsibility. I'm the host of the AV-IT Amplifier, and I do other random and goofy things from time to time.
Well, you brought up, which if you could see my screen, let me pull this and turn it around. But yeah, the second question on here is, because I knew you were going to mention it. So you're an at-large board member of HETMA. What does that mean?
I love the term at
I would say
large.
Yes, it's because at large sounds like did you jump a fence and now people are looking for you? Is there an APB out for someone who looks vaguely like you? Are there poorly drawn sketches of you at the post office? Have you seen this man? Are you on milk cartons? What does an at-large board member do? In fact, and I'll give you this opportunity to talk a little bit more about what HETMA is and what HETMA does, because I think HETMA is a fantastic organization as well. But I figure this would be a good opportunity for you to talk at it from your perspective.
Sure. So I'll give you the serious answer and the not serious answer, though the not serious answer is a little more serious than the serious answer, if that makes sense. So an at-large board member is elected to the board like anybody else, but the board currently has 8 members, 1 emeritus person, that is BC, and 7 current board members. And so in addition to the officers, which is chair, vice chair, secretary, treasurer, there are 3 other board members that are elected for staggered terms, a 1-year, a 2-year, and a 3-year. And so nominally, one of the things we do is try and, since we don't have a role as an officer, is help out in other areas. So if there's a challenge getting something started up with, if the approved program or PRISM program or some other part needs assistance, we try and jump in and lend a hand there. And then one of the things that we're working on is basically the 3 at-large members being sort of a small committee of 3 to look at and handle things coming into for the board that may not fit neatly in any other category. So if there's not a chair assigned to something, or there's something that the board needs to pick up, but it's not squarely in one of those roles, then the at-large members can kind of pick that up and do that. And take on that decision making, or make a recommendation to the board as a whole about what might need to be done. So we try and just like think of it as the utility player, the utility board member, be where we need to be, help out where we can help out. And then in the large measure, your job is to just curtail Joe and keep him in line as best you can. So that's really, I think, the key role for at-large board members is to bring sanity when sanity is needed, and bring chaos when a little more chaos is needed.
Fair enough. That was a good. That almost sounded like a partially practiced answer. Like you've been asked this question a number of times and determined that you probably need to have a decent response, other than, I don't know, I join Zoom calls periodically and tell people that sounds like a good idea.
Well, there are a lot of Zoom calls. We review contracts every once in a while, read something, but there's some of that, but it means, like, bless his heart, Atkins as the treasurer has responsibilities of keeping up books, making reporting, filing our taxes, doing that other stuff. So an at-large board member, what I try and do is think, if there are officers who are trying to get stuff taken care of on a regular basis, who's thinking a couple more steps down the line, right? Who's really thinking, 2 or 3 years down the line? And that's one of the reasons I like that there's a 1 and a 2 and a 3 year. It kind of staggers out those, so people turn over with, in a staggered fashion, and people can think a little farther than, a single term in terms of what is the overall direction, what's a good idea, and in the long run, it's the duty of every board member to think what's in the best interest of the members of this organization. If we had all the members here and they all were weighing in on this, how do we think, the overall membership would think about it, and how can we best represent the longer term interest of the people that we're here to serve? So that's kind of, if it sounds practiced, it's something I think about quite a bit. So I could talk about it for all day if you want to.
Fair enough. We'll just keep putting quarters in this machine and let you go for the entire.
Yeah, and then everybody will turn. This will be the least popular episode so far.
3 downloads. In fact, 1 person returned their download. Exactly. I'm not sure even how that worked.
How did you even do? They shoved the bits back through the internet. I don't even know how you could do that.
There's got to be a way to do that, because there's a lot of podcasts out there. And there's a lot of great podcasts. There's a lot of not so great ones too. So is there a way to return a podcast? It didn't cost me anything, but I want to return this.
Yeah, just by principle. I don't want there to ever have been a record that I had this boring thing on my iPod. Yeah.
Right.
I said iPod too, like they still exist,
Yeah, do that. I don't think they do.
No.
Yeah, some of these things where I didn't pay a dime for it, but I still feel like I got ripped off. So.
Exactly. Well, that's what we say. Like, this platform, it's free and it's worth every penny, right?
Worth every penny.
Yeah.
That said, I'll be honest, and I'll be brutally honest. In fact, when I'm involved in organizations or volunteering for a conference or helping out for a workshop or something like that, I'm only doing it 100% selfishly. I'm only doing it because I want it to be the sort of thing that I would attend. If I because we get, how many emails do we get a day of announcing this event or this panel discussion or that workshop or whatever? And I look over so many of them and just delete. I don't care. So ones that I'm a part of, I want to make sure that whatever the event, the project, whatever the organization is, I want to make sure that it's something that sounds of interest in, or let me rephrase, not sounds, would be of value to me. So I'm there almost completely selfishly, like, look, if I can make this of value to me, then it's probably of value to others. So that's the only reason I'm there. I just be honest.
No, but that goes, one of the taglines of HETMA is for us and by us, right? So the us that we're talking about, we may not all think the same, and we definitely don't, because, what I'm saying, you and I have beef going on right now, which probably we may have to clear the air on. I don't know, man. I don't know.
Is it
I'm
beef
just saying
this?
I don't know. Yeah, we'll have to get to that, because, what I'm saying. But as an organization, we're not, HETMA's not out there saying, hey, we're waiting for industry to give us something we're interested in, or we need someone else to take care of those sorts of things. We're saying we know how to program for ourselves. We know how to advocate for ourselves. And so someone like you, and it's why, being education chair and the time and effort you put into things like, our events at Infocom and the lunch and learns and the things we do, you keep that perspective of, if I don't see value in this, why would anybody else see value in it? And say, I know we don't want to do the same thing everybody else is doing, because you didn't see value in those things. Therefore, let's make something of value for people doing a similar job than I'm doing. And I think that's kind of the hallmark of it. And HETMA's kind of a crazy organization, because everybody's a volunteer. It's a side hustle for everyone involved. So, it can be a little unprofessional at times, but I think that's kind of part of the character of it, and part of why it comes across as genuine. And, the unpolished nature of it kind of proves that it's just being done by people who are doing a regular day job, very similar to yours. So, first, thank you for that, and continue being selfish, because as you look out for you're looking out for a lot of other people.
Well, I look out for me, and then I hope that other people might find that to be a value and be like, I'm going to go over and do this thing because I like what that guy's talking about.
Yeah,
so.
Exactly.
All right. Well, we'll have to clear the air. You want to clear the air now, or you want to clear the air later on?
No, let's clear the air now, because. Okay. On the HETMA channel, I should have pulled it up so I could quote you directly, but I believe you said something along the lines of, "Boo, Ryan, boo, I boo you until my voice is hoarse." And as I mentioned before, I think I said until my throat is sore. Until my throat is sore. There you go. I was a school board president during COVID. So I've had some things said about me that I didn't think were very kind, and all of a sudden, I boo you till my throat is sore. I don't know, man. I don't know.
I will and I will take every opportunity to boo you when I see you in person next.
I bet that's true. Yeah. So. No, we will clear the air. Go ahead. All right, your turn.
Well, I want to hear your perspective on it, because I'm not backing down. I'm right. You're wrong, and you need to adjust course, sir.
All right, so I will give
my retort.
Herein lies the role of the at-large board member, which is, as HETMA is, growing and getting involved in the places. One of the things we've availed ourselves is opportunities to have partnerships with events where some of our members might be, but not really have a home, or not really feel as much a part of a community. So, a place like NW Met. And so we're talking, the beef is, this year.
Probably back up and explain the beef.
This spring, HETMA's involved in 2 events that are happening at the same time. So
yes.
One of them is
one event far superior than the other event.
So I would say 2 events, different, you know what I'm saying? But NW Met is a fantastic organization. NW Met, the Northwest Managers of Educational Technology, of which Chris is, I would say, not only a leader, a godfather, perhaps, a pillar of the institution, and an event that I attended.
I just keep showing up. That's as far as I'll go.
Well, that's what it takes. And one that I attended last year when it was in Helena, Montana, and it was a fantastic event. And it actually had kind of a more diverse group at it than I was expecting, and actually a couple of new people I met there who are not really in AV. You kind of a little more in the instructional design mode. I've kept up with, and I have a friend now, Chris Powell from college that I can't remember, which I 100% know because my daughter's friend just went there, and I talk to him all the time. But I'm bad with proper nouns.
All right. Well, that's now on the record. So
no,
good friend of a guy I can't remember his name or where he was.
Chris Powell. He's a Canvas administrator at Western Washington University. See, I just have to go back and think of
in
the whole
lovely
thing.
Bellingham, Washington.
It's gorgeous campus, and he's a lovely person. Anyways, I am full-throated in support of NWMet and all they're doing. And as I talked about last year, I'd love to just erase that N off of there. Let's just make it WMET, just Westmet, and I'll bring it down to, I know it's been to LA or to Las Vegas before. I'll bring it to Arizona.
It has been to Las Vegas. That's right.
But that being said, the other event that's going on at the same time is one I haven't been to. It's called Enterprise Connect. It's a large AV event. It's in, a large, more IT focused event.
Yes.
But it has an AV track and it draws some of that, and it's in a different region. And they reached out to Hetma. It's corporate. It's a very different group, right? It's
the worst kind of AV.
That may be. So where better for Hetma to go and find the people like us doing our same job that don't yet know about us? How do we, bring people in who are doing this job on their own or stuck with all IT people around them and bring them in? At NWMet, the people were already in the boat. So as a little more of an IT person these days, and we had to have some people go to each one, and I said I'll bite the bullet and head over to Enterprise Connect. That being said,
you realize that now we're guaranteed to never host formerly NWMet, now WMet in Arizona because of you.
You know what? If
you
someday,
burned that bridge,
if I need to hostile take over that organization, also I'll do it. But I'm not going to do it. But that's the beef. So there's actually,
you start Southwest Met out of spite.
Yeah, exactly.
We'll see what happens.
Copyright infringement.
No, it's fine. I mean, it's disappointing. I'll just say I'm disappointed because I was looking forward to visiting with you in person for another week and talking about odds and ends, and we always have a good time visiting with each other and hanging out, and to see you. I understand the reasoning behind it, but to see you be like, look, I gotta take one for the team and go to this non-AV adjacent-ish event where they're doing everything that AV related wrong and tell them how to do it better. All right, fair enough, but I'm personally disappointed, so I will still boo you until my throat is sore the next time I see you.
Thank you very much. And like I said, in my current role, I do a lot of stuff that would be considered AV work, right? I'm deep in ITIL standards implementation, right? I'm revamping change management right now. Like that's a lot of what I do. And I think without getting on my soapbox, kind of AV people taking on pretty serious roles in leadership and IT, especially on campuses, is a good way forward for AV people. So I'll help lead that charge. But that NWMet's a great thing, and I 100% am disappointed to not be there. I wish they weren't at the same time because NWMet
tell Enterprise
is
Connect to cancel their stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Tell it to move.
Yeah, exactly. So because there's so much value in the community, and like you said, hanging out, being with the people that are there, it was not only a wonderful time, but a good time to listen and learn, and a time to make connections that continue to pay off for my campus. So I trust that
absolutely
that I will be sorely missed. Something will be done in my honor.
Are you going to send any of your team in your stead?
I don't know the answer to that. We have been discussing that, but much like ETC was this year, where I did not stay for the conference, but 4 of my team were there. There's actually a little bit more value now in members of my team making some of the connections that I've made, and that are paying off now. For one of them was corresponding with you just this very week.
Yeah, one of them keeps bugging me about stuff.
Yeah, well, stop. No, I'm kidding. Stop knowing what you're talking about, and people stop bugging you there.
There is that. Maybe I should. That's a good motto to put on the wall behind you. Yeah. Stop knowing what you're talking about, and people will stop bugging you.
No, but you're that combination of a person who knows what they're talking about and is willing to help. And so that's really when we talk about some of these events. When I tell my team, I spread at our college. You get money to go to a conference, and everybody wants to know what the ROI. What did you learn that we're going to put into practice? And oftentimes it's not the thing you heard at that session. It's the person you met that 6 months down the line, you come up against something and you need to know the answer. So in this case, we're looking at some, possibilities of changes, and we don't have to figure all that out on our own because we know people who've gone through some of those changes. And there's a ton of value in that. So again, I won't get off on a tangent there, but.
Well, I have many more follow-up questions related to the AV/IT community, however you want to phrase that, and that interaction. My questions are in no particular order. Like I said, they were stream of consciousness as I listened to the last couple of episodes with Jimmy and Aaron. So these are in, there's no real flow to this. So we'll just kind of jump around here. So speaking of questions, because you have correct me on this, but I'm pretty sure you have a set of questions that you generally stick to and you return to, so everyone kind of gets the same general interview on the AV/IT amplifier. Is that correct?
Yeah, so we do an hour recording that gets broken up into 2 episodes, and in general, yeah, I know. Well, but in general, the way it's supposed to work is the first episode should be on topic, let's say, and the second one is off the rails. I don't know if that is.
I like those concepts. We should look into that a little bit more.
Sometimes the first episode, when it is individual, we get a little more personality, and then their episodes are a little similar. But Erin's episode, was specifically to talk about her master's degree program she was going through, why she chose to do it, what the content was like, and is that sort of thing, would that be of value to other similar people out there? And then in the second episode, it's I have a list of probably 20 or 25 questions. Some of the same ones come up, but I'm having to rotate them now a little bit because people have heard them, and so they start getting ready for them in a way.
Oh, they're starting getting prepared.
That's okay. That's good. Well, sometimes it means they've got something they want to say, which is good, but then sometimes they have 3 or 4 sentences they just say, and then it's hard to get a flow going. The real interesting answers are the ones that lead you to some other place that you didn't know you were going to go, right? Lead you down a rabbit hole. With Jimmy, one of the questions lists the name of 5 female singers, and you have to pick your favorite. And in the end, his favorite, his favorite wasn't necessarily specifically because of how they sing or something, but the context in which they were writing and performing songs. And that led us down a whole side path of, art being informed by the context in which it's made that I think, is fun. Those are the sorts of conversations I like when they go off to the side. But that's a long answer to your question that, yes, there are ones that I particularly like to hear from people about, and I'm selfish like you. So I figure if I think something is interesting, maybe other people will.
By the way, on that question specifically about the female artist, I'll be honest, the only one I knew the answer, or the only person I'd ever heard of actually on that one was Aretha Franklin. So I was able to quickly pivot and talk about the Blues Brothers for a few minutes. Yeah,
but it goes in the direction of the person. You know what I'm saying? They're all a little bit of a Rorschach test, or they're supposed to be a little bit of something you think there's an obvious answer for, but then it makes you kind of think twice about it. So
I'm just glad I had that in my back pocket, because otherwise I would have been like, I'm not really sure who these people are. I've heard the names, but don't know their songs, so I couldn't tell you. So
cool.
All right. Let's see. So related to your questions that you ask people, what's one question that you wish you could ask people, but you've never done so for whatever reason? You're either reticent to do so, or maybe you haven't found the right guest, or maybe it's in that list that you're rotating through and you just have never gotten to it for whatever reason. You skip past it. What's one that you wish you could ask, but you haven't done yet? Or maybe something yet. Maybe you never will.
Yeah, so I'll give you a same thing, sort of the non-serious and the serious answer. And I always have both of those to any given question. But one is
we'll get like 6 episodes out of this. This will be great.
Yeah, exactly. But one that I have asked, but I stopped, was about if people could do vocal impressions or impersonations of people. Because when I first started, I was just hoping, somebody would pull out a Christopher Walken or some other thing, and then I could put on a voice, and you could instigate something that, that was spontaneous and funny. But it puts people on the spot in a way that, like, nobody's got that ready, right? Like, Joe did Kermit the Frog. That
did he?
Yeah, so he did.
Remember that.
And Elmo, George Chaco did a little Elmo. You know what I'm saying? But so it's okay. Like, what I realize is it doesn't make people feel comfortable. They're not ready. It doesn't get anywhere. I was artificially trying to do something that I wanted to do. well, that's not being a very good host. So I've kind of let that one go. But one of these days, you'll get the right person to go back and forth on that. The question that I haven't asked, and this has come up a number of times now, isn't necessarily a single quote. Well, the question would be along the lines of, how did your pain, or how did your problems, or how did your challenges really lead you to the thing that you're talking about? And it's simply because I don't always know how much a guest really wants to share. It doesn't happen on every episode, but when we had Alicia Hensley on, she started to open up a little bit about kind of her childhood, and would allude to certain things in a way that suggested childhood challenges, right? Or a lack of expectation and things like that. And my gut, as a person, if it was just her and I talking at an event, that I would 100% delve into that, because then you could take the context clues and see, do they really want to talk about it or not? When you've got them recorded in video and audio, sometimes I'm worried about that, and you don't want somebody to get put in a place. That's fair,
not just from a recording standpoint, but they may forget that right now you and I are having a conversation, but there's several thousand people listening to this over the next year or two.
I would hope so.
Who knows what we're going to say that we may not have want to have said. So
right.
yeah,
and there's that, but that's again, as a nominal technology podcast, people aren't always ready to really talk about things, but some of the questions I ask get or try to get a little bit to who is the person really, who what I'm saying, what's really going on, because in the long run, I love technology, I love geeking out on it, but man, I like people a lot more than that, and so that's kind of where my interest lies. I'm
a misanthrope. Well, I hate everybody.
Nah, I think yours is also very interesting on that fact, because everyone's decisions are motivated more by emotion than rationality, and most of the times we just have good ways of explaining them. But I'm willing to. But that, anyways, I think there's a lot to be uncovered in that area, and that's what I like to talk about. So the answer to your question is really kind of how. Is the thing I don't ask would be to delve deeper than don't know if my guest is willing to go. If I don't do a lot of pre-interview, I don't set things up. I want people to hear it. I could talk a long time, but one of the advices you gave when you gave a how to do a podcast thing was, don't ever refer to something that the audience didn't hear, right? And you always hear like, oh, we were talking before the show, and
don't ever do that.
Exactly, because it makes the audience feel left out. So to make sure I don't do that, we don't, with a guest, it's a little like, hey, what's the topic? What's a couple things maybe you want to be sure to hit or not hit, but I don't want to do all that first, because then it comes across like a interview like on the Tonight Show or something, where you can tell, the host just happens to ask a question that sets you up for your perfect, anecdote or whatever. It's not genuine. So that's one of the things that's great about podcasts.
That's a good point. I'm gonna bring that up just because I did present on that a number of years ago. Actually, no, it was only a year ago.
That was at NW.
By the way, it was at NW Met. The highly superior to ETC. What's the other one called?
Enterprise Connect.
Enterprise Connect.
Yeah.
Forgot what I was going to say now. Oh, yeah. So don't pre-interview. If you want to discuss a general approach to a topic, because some topics are broad. Let's talk about AI, and you're all over the place. If you want to try to narrow that in, that's fine. But save all the good stuff for the show. And here's some inside baseball stuff for AV Super Friends, because we're on we do a meeting on Wednesdays, and we usually record on Fridays. Not always, but usually that's the schedule. And on Wednesdays, as we're talking about the general approach we want to take, sometimes good discussion will happen that is not being recorded. And several of us, but Mark Kolowazinski, one of the other AV Super Friends, and I tend to start into save it for the show, and to the point where sometimes I will basically yell at people on the call to shut up. You're wasting really good content here.
Yeah.
Put a pin in this and save it, because this is gold, and we're not recording it right now. And 2 days later or 3 days later, you're going to try to remember what you said that sounded so good or was very pithy or insightful or whatever, and you're not going to remember, or you're going to refer to something that was said that people don't get to hear, and it's going to not come across as genuine. So yeah, one of the things for podcasts, don't don't pre-interview. Save it for the show.
And again, now I'm pitching my own podcast, but the one after Aaron is a young woman named Hannah Kindry from Michigan State, and I met her at a thing at Educause, and we were talking, and she went on like kind of a 3-minute monologue on her area of expertise, right? And I remember just going, that was amazing. Like, you could see this person has thought really deeply about what they do, and I had that moment of like, I literally flashed back to that and went, hold on, okay, wait. Like, I want to ask you 6 more questions about this, but is there any way you'd be interested in, instead of doing that, coming on the podcast and talking about that? Because it was insightful and incisive in that way. And she said, yeah. So I said, put a pin in it, got home, sent her an invite, and that's the next episode. But for that reason, that is, I want to have the conversation fresh in that way, because it's always better the first time than trying to remember what you said.
It is tough. And you'll hear us refer to on AV Super Friends all the time about, like, there's notes, damn it, because we're trying to, like, not necessarily stay on track, but there's an approach we want to have to generally a broad topic. We're talking about networking or whatever it is, but we want to kind of stay. And it's so it can be challenging at times. Let's just put it that way. So, all right. Boy, so I was going to respond to your whole thing about questions you've never asked or why you stay away from things. I was just going to say, I bury all my emotional responses under humor.
Right.
And then I was going to follow that with, Ryan, tell me about the most traumatic childhood experience you've ever had, and why is that important in formatting? Yes. Anyway, we'll just move on. So, all right. So let's I'm going to skip this one question because it's self-deprecating, but let's go to the next one. Yeah. But you can't see any of these, by the way. So
that's true.
We work in IT / AV. Some of us are more AV into IT. Some of us are IT into AV. Some of us say it's the same thing. Some of us vehemently disagree with that. There's all sorts of different approaches. But as we increasingly, let's just say the IT and AV worlds, those Venn diagrams kind of overlap more and more. What's the one thing that you wish you could explain to people who explain to IT people who assume that the AV people are just hanging TVs on a wall? That's all. That's just it. Hanging TVs on a wall, and you're done. What else you guys doing?
Well, so that I wish I could. I mean, I do and have had to do for a while now. It's twofold, which is one, first, AV people just simply have a laser focus on user experience, in a way that there's sections of IT that don't always have to. And I think that's kind of the thesis of why I really want AV people to try and press into IT and take leadership roles and take on responsibilities for other areas is that fact that we AV people really understand that we don't build things to live in a vacuum. We don't build classrooms so that the classroom will sit there and look amazing. We build it so that students will actually learn, and that the experience of students and instructors in the room is paramount. So I think that's a key part. And then the other one is, I mean, think about it this way, right? We know now that, I don't know what the percentage is today, but the majority of packets, 6%. No, the majority of all packets going across the internet are video, right? That streaming services and video is kind of the real purpose of the internet. And everything else, email traffic and all that, is just simply smaller. Well, in the world of AV over IP, the same thing is starting to happen on college campuses, right? The majority of packets that will traverse networks will be AV. So what AV people first need to be experts in all the technology that is required to produce the result that we're trying to produce. So if we're moving into the world of AV over IP, we better be pretty good network administrators. We need to understand that technology and how it works. We need to be good partners of the people that we have to work with on it. But then the flip side to that is, by doing so, our people who run networks for a living, their historic importance was right, VoIP traffic over other traffic in QoS to make sure that phone calls stay up and that sort of thing. Well, the same exists here in that at my college, and I think at a lot of colleges, there are a lot of schools that are very campus based, but a lot have more and more growth of online students, and you have more students not ever coming to campus. I got my master's degree from NAU and never set foot on the campus while I was there, so the functioning of their on-campus network wasn't really relevant to.
You just like hacked into their system and entered your name.
Yeah, exactly. They still don't know that I, was, but that sort of, experience is the movement of packets from building to building on that campus didn't really affect my experience as a student, but the future, but those packets are becoming more and more critical as every piece of information going through classrooms is starting to move that direction. So I think what I would tell them about, what I would want IT people to make sure they know about AV people is they are committed to understanding the highest levels of technology, the latest technologies, to bringing those to bear in new ways, and the value of CX or the experience of our users being paramount in decision making, or needing to be a very important thing, is the major lesson that they could learn. That a stable email system doesn't do any good if people don't like sending emails back and forth, right? It is the experience of the people on the other side that makes sense. And I likened it to, I think everyone in AV knows it, and people in IT, we share this, is sometimes you'll get an architect come in to build a new building, right? And they build a building that is spectacular on day zero, right? It looks beautiful and it's big and it's grand and it's aesthetically pleasing. And then on day one, when people start using it, you start running into trouble. And it's not set up for how the people who are actually going to live in the building really need it to work. And if we think of our IT infrastructure the same way, the key is not to make sure that we have a killer implementation of X, Y, or Z that stands on its own. It has to stand in the eyes of the people that we're there to serve.
That was a long answer, and I'm trying to see what the one thing was.
Oh man, I always give long answers, and I ramble.
I would say maybe if I'm going to try to summarize, you're going to say that AV people aren't just hanging TVs on the walls; they're more concerned about the holistic approach of technology and how the users experience that.
Yeah, I mean what we don't just hang TVs on walls. How much time and consternation goes into exactly where on the wall did that TV need to go, and exactly what size did it need to be before the last part of the TV being there? What is the viewing angle? How many people need to see it? What's the character size going to be? Does it fit spec or not? Is it 21:9 or 16:9? You know what I'm saying? Any thoughts on that one?
Answer to that.
I know. I'm poking the bear on that one. But
you don't poke a bear. I'll just be straight honest. 21:9 is bullshit.
Yeah, but that's sort of
I have to mark this as explicit.
Yeah, exactly. It's the thought and care that goes into that. And if AV people are just banging TVs on a wall, then they're not practicing the craft, right? And we all know that, people who are doing that, but it's the thought, the care, and the design that goes into making sure that the right TV is going on the right wall at the right height in the right place, so that the TV then fades into the background and what's being put on the TV becomes paramount, is the key. And bringing that concept into everything we do. If you have a school that's got 87 awesome systems, but the only way to get to them is to launch one page that gives you 87 links to get into them, that's not a great, a student's not going to navigate that. You need systems that are integrated, feed one to the next, where a student may be using Panopto and Canvas and Zoom, but they're not always totally clear where they're moving between them because it's holistic. That's sort of the AV design element of, that, say, a chief technology officer should be looking at. That's really looking at that experience, because in the long run, a person sitting in the classroom shouldn't care what brand TV is on the wall. They should care about the content on it. And we don't want our users to care, well, wait, did I just move from X system to Y system? We just want them to be able to get to where they need to go.
Well, it's a good point to think about it somewhat objectively. If, an AV system is successful if it's invisible, because it's not getting between the users, the viewers, the participants, however you want to phrase that, and the content. It's allowing them to deliver their content in the way that makes the most sense for the given use case. So
Yeah, and I think a lot of technology, like I love that in AV we refer to ourselves as integrators, or you know what I'm saying, that the term is integrator, and that's kind of and in IT world, right? Integrator means something different, you know, or integrations are you know, they would refer to it as specifically using the APIs of two disparate systems to bring them together to make them act as one system. Well, that's exactly what we're doing in AV also. So what does the bigger layer of integration look like between all of the things that we do? And are those integrations from our point of view or from our users' point of view? And as long as we're keeping our users' point of view, then we develop AV systems, like you said, that disappear. And people just talk and everybody hears them, and what it took to get that done isn't important to the user, even though we know it takes a lot of work to do that correctly.
Right.
Same thing.
They don't care. Yep.
Yeah, same thing on the other side. Is it shouldn't matter how much work went into making sure the packets got where they needed to go, or that you clicked on this and it automatically moved you from, you know, a session at your institution into O365. You didn't have to click another thing and log in again and yada 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 yada, where the process of the technology kept you from getting to, you know, the collaborative document you were trying to get to, or whatever it is your target was.
Well, and I've had that kind of conversation with some true, you know, let's call them AV contractor, AV systems integrators, where they're asking questions about how I'd like this sort of thing to interact with that sort of thing, and oftentimes they are what I would consider rudimentary. They're kind of basic intro level questions, and my response is in a much more diplomatic way than what I'm going to say right now, but is fundamentally, you're an integrator, integrate it. Yeah. That's your job. That's why you're here. That's why you're charging me an exorbitant fee for me to have to come back later and mop up after you. But it is frustrating because I think from the standpoint, purely the standpoint of the commercial integration market, for lack of a better term, people have gotten so used to kind of living within a certain ecosystem that once you ask them to step outside that ecosystem, it all falls apart. So
right.
It is frustrating. All right. I do have a follow-up question. This was not designed, but you mentioned it.
Okay.
And so I'm going to try to jump around here as we're on question number, I think, 6 of 27. So this will be
perfect.
So you've spoken, and only partially in jest, about the AV takeover of IT. However, a lot of AV people don't have their own houses in order, by which I mean their own skill set, even within the AV realm, let alone IT. They're just like within AV, they are not, how have I heard this phrased, operating at the top of their certification or at the top of their knowledge. And yet they want to kind of portray themselves as IT. I want to get more involved in IT. We're doing more and more IT. It's like, you guys don't have your own, you know, your stuff together in AV. So how can we, that is to say the higher ed community of AV and IT, but only AV, because that's all we care about. How can we be more intentional about becoming experts in our own field before we set our eyes on somebody else's domain? So basically, before we start throwing rocks at somebody else, maybe we need to get our own houses in order. How can we, as higher ed, the higher ed community, be more intentional about that and get our stuff together?
Yeah. So there's the first answer to your question, and then kind of how I want to turn. I'll challenge part of the question that one of the assumptions in there, which is, yeah, I mean, look, if you are working AV and the first tent pole of what you plan on every year is how you are going to improve yourself and your team, you're doing it wrong. You just have to always be getting better. And not just from, hey, there's new technology, I need to know how it works, but what do your business processes look like? How are you gathering data on what you've already done so that you can correctly iterate? Do you make decisions on what feels best or what's actually best? And I'll say all this as if I have my total act together on it.
I say it's a great way to hide the fact that I don't have any of this stuff going right. So.
Right. But I think so. You know, how do higher ed people do it? You know, you and I have talked about this a lot, and I think it's a key thing, which is we have to own everything that we're doing. We don't leave ourselves dependent upon other people's expertise. Become experts in the things that we need to be experts in. And it's not as hard as we think. and we've talked about that a lot in terms of, consultants or integrators and their work on college campuses, and where the paradigm of AV people are just the support people, but they don't have what it takes to design or create something. They can't play in that pool. They just need to take care of what a better expert puts together. I would challenge that all the way to the ends of the whatever. I would boo that until I was hoarse. You know what I'm saying?
And I would be right there with you booing that, because that is absolutely the wrong approach, is to let somebody else do it.
Right. Whatever. There is no secret. No integrator out there, no consultant out there has magical information that's not available. The only, what we have to do is own that it's up to us to become that level experts on technology, become that level expert on architecture. Why are architects bringing in consultants instead of working with the people on campus to do that, and see if we can fill the same things? And if that answer has to do with, dollars and kickbacks and other things, dive in there and figure
Spiffs.
spiffs, and figure those things out as well. But the other thing I would challenge is no one has their house in order. If you wait to have your house in order before trying to project influence, you never will. And the perception that the people you want to, and I'll get to the other part of this, take over, that they have their house in order, so you have to get yours in order first, is always going to be the reason why we can't be any more than we are today. And the answer, I like to talk about the AV takeover of IT because it's fun to talk about. But let's be clear, it's not a hostile takeover. What it actually is the idea that our struggle to get our house in order and an IT department right next to you struggle to get their house in order is the same struggle. And we're better off doing the struggle together, because in the long run, we're serving the same people. And when we draw the distinction between I work on computers and you work on projectors, we draw the wrong distinction. It actually doesn't fit with the ethos of who and what AV people are. So, AV takeover of IT is fun to talk about. And at our institution, we just happen to have been in a place where people who historically came from AV were in a place to, as reorgs happen, we were at a place where we could take on responsibility and bring other departments in and do that sort of thing. And I would encourage people to be ready for that. It doesn't mean we don't try and put our houses in order, but know that everybody's struggling to get their house in order, and that the common struggle is better than the individual struggles, if that makes sense. So if an example is in the building that we occupy now, that now we have people, walls taken down and things mashed together. There was a wall right through the middle, and on one side of it was offices and cubies and storage for the AV group, and on the other side was offices and storage and cubies for the desktop services group. And and there was literally people that we just didn't talk to that much. And it did not serve our clients. It did not serve our instructors, and it did not serve our students. And so when the opportunity arose to say, we want to draw the distinction on department, not by the type of technology that you work on, but by your role in technology management, we were able to do that. So instead of having an AV help desk and an IT help desk, we have a unified help desk. And instead of, what is at my place, the integration department handles both computer endpoints and AV systems. And are there challenges with that? Yes. Is it hard to do at scale? I'm at a smaller school, so it's a little easier for us to do it than maybe to do it at scale. But we're trying to be that, to try something new and look for places that synergy brings benefits for our users. So again, that was a very long answer to your question of what do we need to do in higher ed to get our act together. And I think people, if you don't know the answer, people know the answer to that, which is whoever you look at as an expert in your field, you go do what it takes to become that person. And if you don't know how to do that, contact the HETMA education chair, Chris Dechter. He has a lot of thoughts and ideas about how
point you
people
into a
can
bunch of links
themselves.
that don't help. Yes.
Yeah.
So. Thank you for listening to the AV IT Amplifier. Tune in next week for more with today's guest. It'll be great, or your money back. Your host has been Ryan Gray. He's on the tweeters at Ryan_A_Gray, or find him on LinkedIn to connect. Please subscribe and give the show a rating and review wherever you get your podcasts. This show is brought to you by higheredav.com. The views expressed here are not necessarily those of our respective institutions, employers, or sponsors. Everyone hang in there, go easy, and we'll be back next week.